Fate, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Epitret. Its 10-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new nerd life and new nerd civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Welcome to another episode of Over 40 and Unapologetically Nerdy. I'm your host, Felicia Baxter. This week has been a whirlwind. We've seen rise up to pandemic levels, finally, the coronavirus being recognized by the World Health Organization. I've spent a lot of time overlooking the beautiful mountains here in Chattanooga and finding content and organizing in such a way to keep people informed, and sometimes the news is better than drama, but who knows. But I am broadcasting today, of course, from beautiful Chattanooga, even though it's very dreary today, and I will be doing my best for my Picard recap, as well as spreading some facts, kicking the knowledge about COVID-19. And I hope you will enjoy this episode as much as I've enjoyed creating it, as well as I hope with a little bit more knowledge it'll actually help to reduce your anxiety. And thank you for listening. So, as part of my general hustle, I am most excited about what I have to do to continue to create content. And it requires that, number one, I continue to do my day job well, but I also gather up content and support from other sources. For a minute there, I tried Fiverr. That was exciting, but I'm limited by my day job. However, there's certain ways that you can actually publish links, Instagram, Facebook, on your blog, that will allow you to fund your passion project. Writer's Block Coffee is one of those things. Not only will it allow me to benefit from my own purchases, I'm actually my best customer, but it also supports what my intent is for this coffee. Writer's Block Coffee has actually been trademarked, and its mission in the industry is to supply writers with and those working inside the publishing industry with finest coffee, provide revenue opportunities like me to publishers and other businesses through coffee products. And it's supporting bookmarking efforts with custom label coffee, which I am drinking as we speak. Writer's Block Coffee bridges a gap between the coffee and publishing industry. Coffee shops are great for hosting writing and reading activities, but their services stops at the door. That's where Writer's Block Coffee starts. By offering coffee for every stage of a book's life, from the writing to the marketing, Writer's Block Coffee reimagines the role of coffee as a partner and not an accessory. This experience informs every step of Writer's Block Coffee takes, from the taste of the coffee to the shape of the partnership. And I am a proud publisher of the links for you to enjoy this coffee too. So navigate to writersblockcoffee.com/TNFro is reading to find out about this, as well as the swag, and also enter the TNFro is reading promo code in to get 10% off of your order and shipping. And tell them that Felicia sent you. So welcome back to the show, and thank you for joining me. I love Star Trek, and anyone that knows me knows that is to be the truth. I was probably more excited than most people that I personally know in respect to a big Rotan or Rubenesque over 40 fan, and it just seems that this particular sequence of series actually is going to lend itself to a lot of writing of fan fiction. With that said, I have been elated in being able to gather the content to make the episode, and I thoroughly enjoy watching the episode. I'm not so nerdy that I wait up until 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time because after which it drops. I try to plan my day and make sure I get my day job stuff done fast enough so I can actually engage and just be present and just watching the 55-minute episode. And if the teasers and the synopsis is any indication about how baller this episode is going to be, I'm excited. For example, my play boyfriend Eleanor is going to play a big part in this, and also Bad But 7 of 9 is also going to be also playing a big part in this, and I can also see or have a feeling that this particular part of this particular episode is going to just have probably a lot more action than the previous episodes, and it's going to move on because my play boyfriend Elnor is gangster. He is so beyond gangster. It just blows my mind, and I have a feeling that this episode may get several blasts from my phaser just because of that fact. I'm excited, and I hope you will be excited in the 8th episode of Star Trek Picard called Broken Pieces. And I'm just reading simply from the synopsis from CBS All Access. When devastating truth behind the Mars attack are revealed, because I think it was sabotaged, probably orchestrated, probably by the Romulans, Picard realizes just how far many will go to preserve secrets stretching back generations. Who was in Generations? Was that the crystalline? I think that was actually the crystalline entity, and that other, but I thought he died in that particular episode of Star Trek, because that's when Data and his positronic brain came to fruition. So I think that's all going to come back and make a full circle. All the while, La Serena crew grapples with secrets and revelations of their own. I think they're getting ready to oust what's her name, the blonde chick that swallowed, and then she basically forced herself to throw up the tracking device that had been placed by the Vulcan, the security officer for Starfleet. Narissa directs her guards to capture Eleanor, setting off an unexpected chain of events on the Borg cube, because I think the X-Borgs are going to be reactivated, and 7 of 9 is probably going to serve as their queen. How baller is that? Now on to watching the episode. Star Trek Picard, the 8th episode, Broken Pieces. So, the Jat Vash has some ceremony where it seems like they have some super crazy link, and they foresee basically the destruction of Utopia Planitia, the Mars yard. They see it as their duty to basically destroy the AIs. I find it kind of crazy that they would go to this extent. And it's so crazy that some of them couldn't take it, and they basically thrash and self-mutilate, pull out their hair, and one of the nuns or whatever they're called actually blows their brains out. And one of an ex-Palchion that was made a Borg, she is actually one who is now an ex-Borg. And the reason why they have not done away with her is because she's a part of the Zhat Vash, the very militant but separatist Romulan sect. I think women power is on crack, but it's just so sad that all of them are like kind of the bad guys, and I think they're all misguided and misled. But that's just me. And here we go, my play boyfriend loses the silicon communicator for 7, but he's still kicking the butt though. Let me see if they can subdue him. Yeah, here comes 7. Aww.
Where's Hugh?
She's like the motherboard. It's crazy. She needs to become the queen. So I'm at a part where they're actually going through the credits, the opening credits, and I love the interchangeability of how they introduce everyone. It always sit around the Borg cube, and how they interplay with technology and the natural world, like the connections, I guess, of the Borg collective are similar to the connections in the Vineyard. And why does Picard play such a massive role in all of this? And they have it all the way down to the DNA. It's amazing. And then also they show it down to the quantum level. I think that's pretty amazing too. And of course they show a part of the eye between the Borg visual piece, and then I'm sure they cut to the visualization of Picard and how his becoming Locutus is also paramount in this. So is Rios a synthetic too? And he's becoming activated?
You have no choice but to trust me.
Agnes Girardi is outed.
We think she killed Bruce Maddox.
And now they reveal that she did kill Bruce Maddox, even though the audience already kind of knew that.
Who is?
I just realized they're on their way to Deep Space 12, kind of like Deep Space 9. I wonder if Benjamin is there or anybody else from the Bajoran Guard. Oh no, somebody.
I would also say it's regenerating.
7 of 9 is jacking the cube. That is crazy and hilarious. And the artifact ain't so much artifact. Wow. What I think is hysterical is all of the holograms on Rios' ship make him seem like a multiple personality.
You'll be surprised.
Each one represents a part of his personality. Freaking hysterical. That tramp Narissa just flushed millions of Borg into space. We also learn that the synth question goes back to when Rios was still active in Starfleet, this whole secret is deeper than any of them actually probably could have absolutely imagined. The octenary star system smacks of Q, and the general screwery on how the humans see the fallacy of all of this, and they keep messing it up trying to correct it. It completely blows my mind.
When we get to D's.
So it looks like Picard, Rios, and the rest of the ragtag crew to get Soji back to her home world. They make it through utilizing some Borg technology, but I wonder if that's flipped, whether the technology was actually developed by the synth and the Borg just assimilated it. But anyways, so they get through the portal and they end up back at her home world, but of course somebody is waiting to follow them in, and I think that is what's his name? Sarek. Narek. He is actually had followed them in, and somehow he was able to track them there. Or he actually was able to gather the information of where they were going, and he was just waiting around to follow them in. Or was it somebody? Or because somehow I vaguely recall that didn't Picard ask the Federation for help, and is that the ship that was sent by O? Who knows? But I'm getting ready to watch a teaser for next week, episode 9, as well as the Ready Room, even though I cannot stand, or Will Wheaton kind of gets on my nerves. My Play boyfriend is on one of the episodes. Eleanor is one of the episodes, so I have to watch that. I usually don't like watching that because I don't want it to taint my own opinion of what I'm actually seeing. So there you go. So I'm actually navigating right now online to find where is this? YouTube. If they've already, I'm sure they have, because they've already dropped. This episode is already positive today, and I'm going to have to learn more about the CDC information on COVID-19. But of course, I don't believe it one bit. So let's see. Star Trek Picard episode 9. And it's called the preview trailer At an Arcadia Ego. I took Latin and I don't even know what that means, but let's check this out. And of course that teaser means absolutely nothing to me. Just say
For coming back up.
the Ready Room with Eleanor is kind of hilarious. He knows the process of even getting on makeup, the procedures, and then the killing scene where he beheads that other ex-senator Romulan.
Make him this new kind of Romulan that we've never seen before.
And the whole process of behind non-human Romulan and how he was able to develop it was amazing. And even in spite of it being the end of the day,
his development and stuff.
the sun is finally coming out as it's going down, and the clouds, I can actually see the clouds moving away.
Can be easily removed.
Just like all the video that I've watched so far has been just so cool.
Sad for having taken a life.
The clearing of
It's sad for taking a life that I've actually known.
the storm,
Actually, the first time Eleanor was.
I think, is even more breathtaking and from his vantage
Trained, has
point.
been educated in this way of life.
So now, as I end the show, I did not want to start it with frustration. I find it to be soothing when I have all of the information and I'm allowed to process it. I'm also glad to be able to process it without hysteria. I think the nonsense that's going on with COVID-19, it's just such a shit show. And I think I am going to be okay because I work from home, and the transition from being kind of a hermit anyways is not going to affect me so much. But for those of us that are more social and have to go out in public, it is going to be very difficult. However, I'm just actually very happy that I don't have to go out as much, and I get to decamp somewhere where I don't have to have a whole bunch of interaction with different people. All I know is I'm going to be working on expanding my library and my reading options, and I'm also hopeful that I can arrange to get, I probably have to go, because I really like the actual look and feel of the New York Times, but I think because of a lot of restrictions, I'm probably not going to be able to go out and get my paper. That's like my big Sunday routine. But I get to read it online, and I'm actually very grateful for that. So this next part of the show is me putting my doctor hat on, and I'm going to try to refrain from being a conspiracy theorist. First, which website or which information source do I trust? I think, probably starting at the World Health Organization and then moving on to the CDC, even though I think CDC, because they have suffered between lack of funding and a bunch of scaredy cats, they are not as trustworthy as maybe the World Health Organization, because even though the World Health Organization does not have the ability to enforce anything, they still don't have the restrictions not to be able to report the correct information and kind of unfiltered. And a lot of their recommendations truly are based on, I'm just trying to keep my job, versus they have the experts and they're able to coherently represent a plan of action. Throughout this whole process, I've learned several things: how people can donate to the World Health Organization, how everyone signed some treaty back in the 90s after the first SARS or coronavirus scare, and then everybody's ignoring it. And there's no enforceability and there's no transparency, because the late reporting and true numbers, where truly ground zero started in China, can't trust it, because the Chinese, they don't answer to anybody. They just like Trump on crack. But this is actually what I found out, that it has been declared finally a pandemic, and it went quickly to a global emergency because of the numbers and how the deaths have started being reported. We've heard reports about how full quarantine of an entire cities or multiple cities in China and also in Singapore, how basically Italy is actually shut down. There is no recommendation. Evidently, the World Health Organization did not recommend that because that would not have kept the spread. However, I honestly do believe if China had been transparent and they had quarantined their part of the country, it could have been contained a lot better if they just reported. There was a speech last night that I did not watch because every time Chum 45 speaks, it makes me so mad, and I know my blood pressure goes up to stroke level. So I try to avoid watching either him or Pence speak because I know whatever they're going to say is stupid. So, but if you ask me, was I and has the country, were we in any way, shape, or form reassured by that speech? Nah, we sure weren't, because he misspoke and lied in a lot of respects. So, and I think he made a bad situation worse by all of these missteps, because he don't listen to anybody. He went off script. If he's just like Joe Biden, bro, stay on script. And good news is, if you don't answer the question, you can't say anything stupid, but he didn't stick to the script, so whatever. We are not taken seriously because our leadership is represented. They're a bunch of jokers. China covered up either a massive accident in the virology lab, or they were instructed to basically keep it a secret as much as they possibly could from the rest of the world, because again, they don't answer to anyone either. And do I think it was a big cover-up? Yes, I do. And the World Health Organization say they were late in declaring this as a pandemic because they did not want to create more chaos and pandemonium than there already is. I think that's already too late, because now people don't trust you, and we already see between the lack of toilet paper, conflicting messages, and what that actually does worldwide. And all of the speeches still has not changed that Trump and his administration are a bunch of dumbasses. Testing is not widely available. And this European travel ban is just downright stupid. It's going to make it even more difficult for Americans to get back in, and also for naturalized citizens to get back in either. If this is a way to become more separatist, well, COVID allowed you to do it. I don't see it making much of a difference, and I think it's just creating more anger and just frustration more than anything. The futures tanked, so that ban or that cutting of the payroll tax, which actually fund Medicare, which you don't want to fund anyways, that didn't help because the market still tanked. And what does it all mean? How serious is this virus? This virus is a killer, I honestly think. I think the death rate they're saying right now is 2 to 3%. Who is actually most affected? Those with comorbids like hypertension, diabetes, asthma, the elderly, debilitated patients, immunosuppressed patient, you call it. If you have it, you are susceptible. And actually, little snotty-nosed kids, which I call vectors of germs, they may actually be the most protected because their immune system doesn't go cray-cray when it's exposed to the virus. There's over close to 1,300 cases in America now. There's been over 30 deaths, 36 actually, according to the CDC. And most of those cases are back at Ground Zero, back in Seattle, Washington, at that nursing home. And it's reporting in 43 jurisdictions, 42 states, in the District of Columbia, and it only looks as if the only state that has no reported cases are Idaho, Wyoming, Mississippi, and Alabama, and it's probably because the testing kits are not available. That's all I got to say about that. I think we waited because of China's non-transparency and then not having a viable test that is widely available because they were withholding information. It allowed this to spread widely than initially expected. And again, I honestly think there's been no reports in those areas because, again, the test is not available. What can you do to prevent the spread? Make sure you wash your hands, you disinfect. If you don't have to travel, don't go anywhere. That is very much that simple. This disease is spread by particles on contaminated surface. You touch the surface and you touch a susceptible area like your face, your eyes, or put your fingers in your mouth, and then it gets inside, travels to your lungs, and also potentially your GI tract, and can cause major damage. In particular, it can cause an acute respiratory distress syndrome or super infection with pneumonia, and it can take you out. If you are susceptible, it can take you out even faster. But this is just an opportunity for us creative types to come up with other creative means to entertain. I'm going to plan on ordering several books and get my read on, and then create content for my podcast. Coming up this weekend, I plan on talking more about my rewrite and plans for a book relaunch if Corona says the same, and also highlighting a poetry reading from a friend of mine, Yvonne Patrick. And that is how I plan on spending my time creating. But I'm also a great proponent in how I always end my show talking about anxiety and getting therapy. If you don't have a therapist and you're going to need something or some type of outlet to unpack some of these things because of everything that's coming up and all of the crap that you actually have been dealing with before, you're going to need help unpacking that. And that is where either a certified therapist, TalkSpace, or Doctor on Demand is going to become helpful. And I think the next section and in conclusion of my podcast is critical for you to listen to and ask for the help that is going to get you through the next several months up to a year of trying times. This podcast is my path of entertainment and a form of therapy and an outlet for creative freedom. But if you don't have this outlet and you're struggling with depression, anxiety, or addiction, call 1-800-273-8255. It's available 24 hours a day, every day. And there's also an on-site chat feature at suicidepreventionlifeline.org/chat/. If vodka is your problem, call 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. Then there's also apps like TalkSpace and Doctor on Demand that will actually be able to help you right where you are in the privacy of your car at a fraction of the cost of conventional therapy. It's okay not to be okay, and it's definitely okay to ask for help. Please navigate to www.DalesAngels Inc. for all special offers and updates on nerd news, as well as you can drop me a line at TennesseeFroisReading@gmail.com or even leave me a 2-minute non-trolling message at 423-463-0658. All non-trolling messages may actually be read or played during the podcast. If you like what you're hearing and you want to support continued great content, please become a patron at podbean.com/thetalkingfro or put 5 on it and leave me a tip at paypal.me/Felicia DAI. And I hope you have enjoyed this podcast as much